Welcome to today's Tree-rific RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth, and I'm Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us this evening is the Roots Magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the President of RootsMagic and its author. Now, FamilySearch Family Tree is a new way to organize and record your genealogy online. It's free, it's available to everyone, and it provides an easy way to discover your place in history with free tools to help you preserve and share your family story for generations to come. RootsMagic, the genealogy software named easiest to sync with new FamilySearch, now brings the same power and features that you love to FamilySearch Family Tree with more to come. Currently, it's the only software certified to collaborate and share data with FamilySearch Family Tree. Tonight, we'll look at RootsMagic's award-winning integration with FamilySearch Family Tree, including the ability to share your sources back and forth, view change histories, and more. We'll also show PAF users how easy it is to bring their data into RootsMagic so they too can take advantage of these features. And with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Bruce.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Okay, today's special webinar, what we're going to talk about is how to use RootsMagic with our brand new FamilySearch Family Tree tools. We just the last few days, RootsMagic was what is called Tree Share Plus certified. RootsMagic has been Tree Share certified for about 3 months now, and Tree Share certified means that RootsMagic can look for matches. It can merge duplicates. It can let you share data, in other words, events, and copy people back and forth between RootsMagic and Family Tree. It also means that we can do ordinances and a few other things. The second level of certification, which we're the only ones that have that, like I say, we just got that a couple of days ago, is Tree Share Plus certification. And what Tree Share Plus means is those are what are considered the collaboration tools. Those are the things that instead of just throwing data back and forth, we want to make sure that you're doing it in an intelligent manner. In other words, you're working with other people, so you're not overriding the stuff that is good up on Family Tree, and that if you are putting new information up, that you're giving reasons why, and you're providing sources. So Tree Share Plus means we can now let you share sources back and forth with Family Tree. You can see the history of changes that have been made to a person on Family Tree, and if an incorrect change has been made, you can go in and restore the original value. The Tree Share Plus also includes discussions, which are like little tiny message boards for each person so that you can go in and talk back and forth with people that are working on that same person. Now, before we get started in that, I'm going to do a little sidebar here, and that sidebar is to show you how to import data from PAF. As you may have heard, this past week, FamilySearch announced that PAF was being discontinued. On July 15th, PAF is no longer going to be available for download. There's no more support for it, anything like that. And so what we want to do is make it easy for PAF users to be able to bring their data over into RootsMagic so that they can then take advantage of these same tools, be able to have all the same features they had in PAF, but also be able to have additional features like color coding, the source templates, which help them write professional sources, more reports, things like that, and be able to work directly with FamilySearch Family Tree. So before we do that, I'm going to mention we do have a website, a web page set up, and I'm going to bring that up. If you go to rootsmagic.com/PAF, it's going to take you to a page where you can watch some little mini videos on how to work with PAF. We have a little free booklet that we've created which is how to import your data, how to kind of get started, what the screens look like in RootsMagic, and it has a couple of pages where we list every PAF feature, every menu item, and tell you what the corresponding menu item in RootsMagic is. So if you're used to doing something in PAF, this little list, you can just look it up and say, oh, that's how I do that in RootsMagic. Okay, and it's a little booklet, and we have a download version for free. So just click on the free book, and you can go to the download and just download that free little book, pass it around to anybody that you want. So let's go ahead and get started now. To import a data from PAF, and that's why I started with a completely blank screen here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the File menu. When I start RootsMagic, this is what my screen will look like, just blank. I'm going to go up to my File menu, and I'm going to choose Import, okay, because I want to import my PAF data. When RootsMagic comes up with this little screen, it's asking you what program are you importing from, and there's several different ones, but the one you want in this case is PAF, Personal Ancestral File. Now at this point you have two decisions to make. One, you can tell it search for files. That's good if you don't know where on your computer that PAF file is. You know, it's somewhere on there and PAF has just always opened it, but you don't necessarily know where it is. If that's the case, just click search for files, and RootsMagic will scan your hard drive and try to find that PAF file. Once it finds it, it'll show it to you, and you can click and say open it up. The other option is if you know what folder your PAF file is, and in this case I do, I can say I know where the file is. RootsMagic's going to bring it up, and this is the PAF file that I want to import. It'll end with .paf. That's the one I want. I'm going to say open that. Now, what RootsMagic's doing here is it's saying, hey, we need to create a RootsMagic file to hold that PAF data. Okay? And so we can call it whatever we want. I'm going to call it the same thing as the PAF file, Warren in this case. And then I'm going to choose a couple of options. The options I'm going to turn on is LDS support and FamilySearch family tree support. If you're not LDS, you don't need to turn that on. That's an option that's available if you have that. So I'm going to turn those on, click OK. RootsMagic's going to create the file and import my PAF database. Okay, here's my, this is just a little tiny PAF database, but RootsMagic's going to handle any size PAF file you have. You know, 100,000 names, it's not going to matter. RootsMagic's going to be able to hold that. When it imports the PAF file, it's going to bring in everything. It's going to bring in your names, your dates, your places, all of your events. It's going to bring in your notes and your sources. If you have added pictures to people or sources or citations in PAF, those pictures will be in RootsMagic as well. Now at this point, I am working with a RootsMagic file. My PAF file is still over there in the same place it was before. I didn't touch it. I didn't hurt it. All I did was read the data out of it and put it into a RootsMagic file. So PAF can still open its file over there on my computer without any problem. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I am going to open up Elizabeth Trathan. I'm just going to double click on hers and bring up her edit screen so you can kind of get an idea of what the edit screen looks like in RootsMagic. When you open up the edit screen, everything about that person is going to be displayed right here in this list, whether it's events like birth, christening, death, burial, whether it's family events like marriage, whether it's properties like the person's occupation or residence. If there's LDS facts, those will be shown here as well. Everything is right here on this one screen, basically in a timeline. And you can go in and you can add new facts, you can delete facts, you can bring up the address, a media album, to-do list, research logs, web tags. We have plenty of webinars that show how all of this works, so I'm not going to spend really a lot of time on this. I'm just going to point out that if I select any fact in this list, I can edit it right here. So if I want to edit the residence, click on residence, and I can edit it right there. So that is the edit screen. Okay, the main screen, I will point out, if you're used to Path, you know that when you click on a person, it drops down a little box which has the basic vital information. In RootsMagic, we have that up here. So if I click, it's going to show that all that vital information up here, as well as whether there's any notes or sources or media items, how many spouses, sets of parents, and all of that is right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right in to the FamilySearch Family Tree tools. Okay, we are going to, actually before we do that, let me point out that because I turned on FamilySearch support, we have a little family tree, a little FamilySearch icon in front of or next to each person's name. Because I turned on LDS support, I have a little temple next to each person's name. Now, right now, you'll notice that the little family tree icon is gray. Okay, it's kind of grayed out. Okay, that means that I have not matched anybody in my file with a corresponding person up on Family Tree. Once I've matched somebody to Family Tree, that icon is going to turn this bluish color right here. Okay, it's going to turn blue right there. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to click on the little icon for Elizabeth, and it's going to come up, and it's going to bring up what's called our FamilySearch Person tools. And the first time I come in here, it's asking me to log in. Now, this is my FamilySearch login that I'm using. So if you have a FamilySearch login, you'll enter that right here. If you don't have a FamilySearch login yet, just click right here to create a new account. What that will do is take you to the FamilySearch website where you can go ahead and create a new account, and then you'll have your login and your password that you can use right here. FamilySearch Family Tree is open to everybody. Okay, it doesn't matter who you are. You can go and set up an account right now, and you'll basically log in, and once you have that login and password that you enter there, you can come back in and use it right here. There's also a couple of other options. If you want it to remember your username and password so that every time when I start using the program, I don't have to type it in again, I can check that. If you want to bypass this screen so that you get right into RootsMagic and go in and it never even bothers to ask you to log in because it automatically does that, you can check that checkbox. Now, if more than one person in your family happens to be using RootsMagic there and they each have their own login, I advise against having this bypass because it's going to log in whoever happens to have their name and password there, and you'll have to go in and unset that before somebody else can log in. Anyway, so you enter your login and your password. I'm going to sign in. Now, since that little icon that I clicked on was gray, RootsMagic takes me to the first tab in the FamilySearch Person tools, and that is the Find Matches. It's trying to see, is my person already up on FamilySearch? Okay, and right now it's saying, hey, we found 2 possible matches. This line right here, that's my RootsMagic person. That's the person I just clicked on. And that's why it's got the little RootsMagic icon next to it. And that's the information I have for her. That's her name, her birth date, birthplace, death date, death place, father, mother, spouse. So I have that information right there. Now, I'm going to show you quickly these other pages because these other pages right now aren't going to have any information until I actually do this match. Okay, in other words, if I say I want to share data, I don't have a FamilySearch person that I matched with, and it's telling me go to the Find Matches tab. If I go to Ordinances, it's going to show me we can't show you any ordinances on FamilySearch because we don't know who you're matched to. Same thing with discussions. Same thing with sources. You can see the sources in RootsMagic, but not the FamilySearch one. And changes, we can't show you any changes that have been made to the person on FamilySearch because we don't know who that person is. So the first place you're going to start is Find Matches. And when RootsMagic displays the matches, we use color coding to kind of indicate how well the data, that person matches what you have. Green means the data is matching. Yellow means, yeah, it kind of matches, but there are some differences. And if there's red, that means this data is not matching. It's off. Okay? Now, if you got a solid green person right here as a match on family tree, then you know that's my person. And you can actually go ahead and say, let's match them up right there. But not every match is going to be that good. Sometimes you're going to have just a name and maybe a death date. You may not have very much information on that match in family tree. And so that's why we have the little compare in more detail button. So if I want to compare this possible match with my Elizabeth, I just click and it comes up and it's saying we're comparing my Elizabeth with this Elizabeth on FamilySearch. And so it's, in this case, it's going to show us everything. That little list is only showing us the birth and death date and place. Here I can see birth information, I can see christening information, burial, I can see other residences, I can see the marriages, I can see the family members. So I can see all this other information to decide, yes, this really is my person. So I do want to match this person with mine. What will happen is as soon as I click, it's going to say, do you want to match your RootsMagic person with this person on FamilySearch? I'm going to say, yep, match them. Now, once I've matched my person in RootsMagic to this person on FamilySearch, it's going to show me I'm now matched. RootsMagic has not transferred any data at all. RootsMagic has not sent any of my RootsMagic information to FamilySearch, and it's not taken any FamilySearch information and brought it back into RootsMagic. Okay, it's completely, all it's done is said, hey, these two are the same person. One's in my file, one's out on FamilySearch. But this is what's great. Once I have matched to somebody, I can click the Share Data tab, and I can see my person side by side with that FamilySearch person. I can go to Ordinances, and I can see what I have versus what is actually out there officially on FamilySearch. I can click on Discussions, and I can see if there are any discussions. I can click on Sources, and I can see if there are any sources for this person out on FamilySearch. And I can click on Changes, and I can see the changes that have been made to this person on FamilySearch. Okay, now we're going to come back. We're going to come back to each of those screens a little bit later in this webinar. I will point out one thing. On the Ordinances, Discussions, and Sources, you will note that there's a little number showing if there is a discussion, if there is a source, if there is an ordinance that needs to be done. It will show you that without having to click on the tabs. So that's a new thing in this latest update. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this share data. I now have my RootsMagic person lined up side by side with the FamilySearch person, and again we use the color coding to show how well this data matches. The one thing that's different from this and that other screen that I clicked on before that looked kind of like this is that I have little check boxes in front of all these different pieces of information because I can now copy data back and forth from RootsMagic to Family Tree and from Family Tree back to RootsMagic. I couldn't do that back on this screen because I hadn't actually said my Elizabeth is the same as that Elizabeth. One thing I'm going to point out here, we're going to give you a little preview of something that isn't even in there yet. Okay, so you are going to you're going to actually see a feature that hasn't even been released yet. This feature will be actually coming Friday, and that is the not a match option. So if there are, once you've matched up to somebody on Family Tree, RootsMagic will list other possible matches, in other words, duplicates. Well, if you look at one of these and you compare them and you decide this one is not the same as that one, you'll be able to click and mark this as not a match so that when you come into the match screen in the future, it's not going to keep showing you that. And that takes effect up on the FamilySearch website. Up on the FamilySearch Family Tree website, they have the not a match option as well. So anyways, that's a feature that's going to be in there on Friday. And so by the time this recording comes out, that feature will be available for you. Okay, let's talk about shared data. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is, let's say I have this residence fact and FamilySearch does not have a residence fact. If I want to add that to FamilySearch, I just click, and RootsMagic gives me options of different things I can do with this RootsMagic fact. And right now, the only thing I can do with it is to add it to FamilySearch as a new event. Okay, now when I highlight what I want to do, RootsMagic is going to show me down here, this is the RootsMagic fact, and this is the corresponding FamilySearch fact, which doesn't exist right now. That's why it's blank. And it's telling me this fact is going to be copied to FamilySearch. Now, you'll notice it lists the details about what's going to be copied over there and the sources. So I can actually click and look at the sources that I have for this particular fact. Now, you'll notice it does say sources can be transferred on the Sources tab. When I add a fact from RootsMagic to FamilySearch or from FamilySearch back to RootsMagic, it does not take all of the sources at that moment because there may be only certain sources you want. You may not want all of your sources, and so we have the Sources tab, which will let you choose specifically which sources you want and where you want them to actually be attached. Okay, there's also another field right here. Why do you think this new information is correct? In other words, what is the reason you're adding this fact? You know, you could say, you know, this is my grandfather, and I happen to have visited this house when he was living there. You know, it could be whatever. This does not necessarily replace having sources. It's kind of a reason in addition to why you're actually adding this fact. Okay, I'm actually not going to do that because a lot of this data we're not ready to actually put over on this person right now, so I'm not actually going to click OK to do it. Okay, let's say I wanted to move the birth over to Family Tree. Okay, now in this case, certain facts, birth, christening, death, and burial, Family Tree only allows one fact type, or one of each fact. It only allows one birth, one christening, one death, and one burial. Okay, and so when I click on birth, it's only going to give me the option to replace the one that's already there. So if you go down here, you'll see it's saying you're going to replace this one that's already there. Now, this, as I mentioned, is part of the collaboration concept. Instead of just saying, hey, we're going to replace this, yes or no, and you hitting OK and taking a fact that maybe you don't have any documentation for and overwriting a source on FamilySearch that has 15 sources attached to it, we're going to show you what you have and what FamilySearch has. So we're going to show you FamilySearch has this information, who contributed it, and the date, and again, the reason. So if they entered a reason in that field, it's going to show you the reason they added it, so you know I am going to replace some information that this other person put in for this reason. Okay, hopefully it makes you kind of look and say, okay, I'm not just going to completely overwrite something that somebody worked hard on and has a lot of documentation. In this case, you can see that particular fact doesn't have any sources on FamilySearch. I don't need to replace it because it's the same information. You can say I got the same date and basically the same place. So I may want to add my sources over there, and I'll show you how we can do that in just a moment. And again, why am I replacing the information that's already there? Okay, I can also go the other direction. So, you know, what I was showing you there is how to copy a fact like birth or residence from RootsMagic to FamilySearch. But let's say I want to bring in information that's on FamilySearch into RootsMagic. Well, I just click on birth over on the FamilySearch side, and you'll notice this time I have more than just one option. It's not just add or replace. I can say I want to add this birth to RootsMagic as a new event. See, in RootsMagic we can have more than one birth event. We're not limited to just one like Family Tree is. So we could say we want to add this as a new event. If that's highlighted, it says this fact is going to be copied to RootsMagic. Or I can say I want to replace the one I already have. I want to replace my birth in RootsMagic. And again, this doesn't change. I'm still only copying this to RootsMagic, but on the RootsMagic side, we're giving you a warning in red. This fact is going to be replaced by that selected FamilySearch fact. Okay, and we're also showing you these are the sources that you already have. You know, be careful because you're going to be overwriting this RootsMagic fact with this one from FamilySearch. There's a third option when you click on an item on FamilySearch side, remove from FamilySearch. If I click on that and click OK down here, it's telling me this is actually going to be removed from FamilySearch. I'm actually going to delete that fact from FamilySearch. And again, it's showing me who put it there, why they put it there, and any sources that were attached to that as well. Okay. We also, I'm actually going to do one here. What I've been showing you is kind of how you can do this and what the options are. But I am going to say I want to copy. You notice I don't have a death in RootsMagic. I don't have a death fact in RootsMagic. Family Tree does. Now, these little icons, if I want to see more information about a particular fact, I can click on the little information icon. So if I want to know where did this information come from, did somebody just pull it out of a hat, or is there something to back it up? Well, I want to do that. I want to see where this January 15th, 1911 came from. So I'm going to click on More Details, and RootsMagic is going to pop up a screen saying, okay, here is this fact right here, and here's the contributor reason, and here are the sources. Here's the source for that information. So let's go ahead and click on the source for that information, and it says, oh, it's the Utah Death Certificates 1904 to 1956 index. It's on FamilySearch. Oh, and we can actually, here's the reason that they did it. Here's the reason they actually attached that source to the death. And I can click to view the record. So if I click, okay, it's actually going to take me to the page, and here is Elizabeth Trathon Warren's Utah Death Certificates. And it's going to give me the information for that right there. I can even go in and view the image. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to view this image. We're going to zoom in. And here's the State of Utah Death Certificate, full name, Elizabeth Trathon Warren. And it gives all of the information about her. And it shows that it was in the city of American Fork, Utah. And it gives me the date right here, January 15th, 1911, right there. And I can zoom in, I could go in and I could print this or do whatever I want with it. But I'm going to come back to RootsMagic, and I've decided, yeah, that's a pretty good source. That's convinced me. So I want that death. So I'm going to go ahead and click on death, and my option is to add it to RootsMagic as a new event. You notice I don't have replace as an option because I don't already have a death fact, so there's nothing to replace. Other thing you'll notice here is there's not a delete. You cannot delete death facts from FamilySearch. That's the one fact type that you can't delete. You can't delete the death fact. So when I'm on this screen, I didn't actually have to go click on the I before, because as soon as I popped that to click that little box to bring this death fact over, it's going to show me that fact right there, and I got that link right here where I can do the same thing. I can go look at it. So I'm going to say, yep, I want to add that to RootsMagic. Click OK, and there we are. We now have that fact in RootsMagic. And if I click on here, I can see that, but you can see there's no sources right here, right? So let's go ahead and let's get that source, because I got the fact. I know it's correct because I've seen that source, but I want that source now. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to switch from the Share Data screen to the Sources tab. Okay, so we're going to shift gears here a little bit. Now, with this screen, I am going to have the sources that I have attached to this person in RootsMagic and the sources that I have attached to this person on Family Tree. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer here. I can't spend a lot of time on this, but I do need to explain there are some big differences between the way RootsMagic handles sources and the way FamilySearch Family Tree handles sources. Okay. In RootsMagic, I can create a source and I can attach it as a citation to anything. I can attach it to a person. I can attach it to an event, like a birth or a residence or a christening. So I can attach it to any of these facts. I can attach it to a family. So I basically can attach a source to people, events, families, whatever. On FamilySearch, I can only attach a source to a person or a family, basically. I cannot attach a source to a fact. I cannot attach a source to a birth. I cannot attach a source to a death. I cannot attach a source to a burial. I can't attach sources to specific events. I can only attach them to people. But there's a little special case that if I attach a source to a person, I can then tag. I can tag, that's what we have right here, tagged, attached versus tagged. I can tag a fact type with a source. Okay, so this is not tagged to a specific death event. I cannot tag a specific birth event. I tag the death type, which means if I did have more than one death fact, this particular source is attached to the concept of a death, not to the death on this particular date in this particular place. Okay, that's just the way FamilySearch works. You can attach a source to a person or family, and then a source that's attached to a person can tag the name fact type, the gender fact type, or the birth, christening, death, or burial fact type. Okay, those are the only types of facts that you can tag. Okay, if you attach a source to a family, you cannot tag that to anything. So you can't attach a source to a FamilySearch family and then tag the marriage or the divorce or anything. That FamilySearch does not support that, at least not yet. Down the road they might, and if they do, we will support that. But just kind of keep in mind, it's a totally different way of handling sources than what we do and what we would do in RootsMagic. Okay, so let's say that I want to bring this source over and attach it to that death fact that we just brought over. So I can check the little checkbox, and I have three options. And by default, the option to actually add this source is the one selected. But before we actually do this, let me just briefly mention what these others do. Detach source. If I actually want to remove that source from that person on FamilySearch, okay, this is purely a FamilySearch thing, has nothing to do with RootsMagic right now, but it was a requirement to be certified, to be Share Plus certified. This does let me actually unattach the source from that person. So if I were to do that, it would remove this source from that person. Okay, obviously I don't want to do that. Okay, the second option is to tag individual facts with this source. So since that source was attached to a person, I could come in here and say, oh, that source also mentions their birth. It has some information about the birth date, and I could check that and say okay, and RootsMagic would then tell FamilySearch, tag that source to the birth fact type as well as the death fact type. Okay, I don't want to do that. You'll notice it is attached to the tag to the death fact. What I want is I want to add this source to RootsMagic, and I want to add it to the death. That's where I want it to go. I don't want it attached to the birth or the christening. These are all the different facts that you have in RootsMagic right now. I only want to attach it to the death. So I just check death, click OK, and RootsMagic is going to bring that source over. And now I have, there it is right there, I have that source brought over from FamilySearch and attached to the death. Okay, if I switch, I'm going to switch back temporarily back to that share data screen. Okay, there's that death fact. If I click right here now, there it is, there's that source. Okay, we've brought that source over and attached it to the fact in RootsMagic. Okay, and again, one thing I want to show you, because this is really cool. As I look at this, if I click on that, there's that citation. So I've got that citation over here in RootsMagic now, just like it was over in Family Tree, and it says click to view record. If I click to view the record, again, that's taken me to that exact same page where I can view the image and do all of those things. So when I bring a source from FamilySearch into RootsMagic, it is going to not only bring the citation, but it's also going to bring the link to the actual image or document or website that that source points to. Okay? So in fact, I could even hop out of here. I could actually close out of the FamilySearch tools and go into her edit screen. And there's that death fact that I didn't have before. And when I look at the sources for that death fact, there's the source right there. And when I look at that source, there's that source. And I can, right there, there's a web tag. That's how RootsMagic links websites. And there it is right there. That's how RootsMagic links a website to a source, is through the use of those web tags. Now, we have an entire webinar on web tags, so rather than spend time right here describing what a web tag is, it's just the ability to link a website to a record, whether it's a source or a person or whatever. But that's how RootsMagic is able to bring that actual link to the website, so that when you look at your source, you're not just looking at the citation. You can actually go see the record itself. Okay, let's go back in. Let's go back in here to those FamilySearch person tools, and I'm going to go back into the sources screen because we were still talking about that. So when I come to the sources screen, the last thing I want to show you is how you can add your sources to Family Tree. We showed you bringing a Family Tree source over into RootsMagic. Well, if I happen to want to take this 1871 British Census source that I have in RootsMagic and add that to Family Tree, I just check it right here, and I choose what I want to add it to over on Family Tree. Okay, and again, I can attach it to a person or to a family, and if I attach it to a person, as I mentioned, I can tag it to name, gender, birth, christening, death, or burial. So I could come in here and say, I just want to attach the source to the person. That's all I care about. I don't need it tagged to a particular fact type. And I can do that and click OK. And it's going to add my source over to Family Tree. On the other hand, if I click, say I wanted to add that source, because in RootsMagic I have it cited to his birth, I can click on birth. Now you'll notice when I click on birth, it automatically checks person, because in order for it to be tagged to the birth, the source actually has to be attached to the person. So RootsMagic's going to tell me, okay, yeah, we got to attach it to the person in order to tag it to the birth. If I say, no, I don't want it attached, then it's not going to let me tag it because it's not possible. So RootsMagic's taking care of all of that as well. Okay, so that is how to move sources back and forth between FamilySearch and RootsMagic. Okay, let's go back here. I'm going to hop down here a second, and actually, I'm going to go ahead and stay right here. Well, I do want to actually hop out once. I did want to point out, since we had clicked and matched Elizabeth to FamilySearch, you'll notice there's the icon that's blue. I just wanted to point that out. All the rest of these icons, they're all still gray. I haven't matched any of them to FamilySearch. We've only been working with Elizabeth right here, so hers is the only one that's matched up. Okay, so I'm going to go back in. When I click on that, it's going to take me right back into the Share Data screen. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a shortcut here. On the Share Data screen, we showed you how you can click the little check boxes to move back and forth. Okay, to move this data back and forth between RootsMagic. There's a question I did see over in the question list about, is there a way to get rid of all these alternate names? And the answer is yes. Just click on them over on Family Search side and say remove them from Family Search. And you can give the reason. You can say, you know, he was never known by this name and there's no known record that shows him as that name. Click OK, and it will remove those alternate names from Family Search. So that's how you can do that if you want to get rid of alternate names. You know, just make sure that if you're removing stuff that you've got a good reason for it. Okay, below the facts, the events, you'll have family members. You notice the family members have the little Family Search icon rather than a checkbox. That's because you're not necessarily copying people back and forth. You might, but you're not necessarily. You may actually be matching them up. So if I look at this John Trathan and this one and decide they are the same person, I can actually just click that and say I want to match my John Trathan with that one. And I can actually do the matching from this screen as well as I could from the main pedigree view or one of the other views. If I don't happen to have that father, I could say, okay, I want to add this guy over into RootsMagic as a new father for Elizabeth. Okay, but how do I know just by looking? I mean, if I look right here, I can see those birth dates are actually 6 years apart, you know, and the name is actually spelled a little different. Well, if I click the information for these relationships, it will actually show me my RootsMagic person side by side with that Family Search person, so I can compare to see whether I really think they are the same person or not. Okay, so I can look and say, well, look, the birth date, this is about 1818, this is before 1812, and in RootsMagic, I've got the christening date, which matches the christening date on Family Search. You know, you can look at this and say, you know, Family Search can't be right on this one. It's saying he was born in 1818, but he was christened 6 years earlier. So he was, according to this, he was christened about 6 years before he was born. Okay, other information, can kind of match up. And you can go down here and look at the spouse information, the children, and you can see, yeah, this really is the same person. It's just that Family Search has a bad birth on it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on options, say match them, and now my John Trathan is matched with that John Trathan. So this is just another shortcut to be able to match people without having to go back and forth from the pedigree view into these Family Search person tools for each and every person. A little later, we're going to show you an even better and faster way to do this, though. Okay, so let's go ahead now, and I'm going to move on to some of these other pages as soon as I show you one last thing. If you match your person in RootsMagic with a matching person on Family Search, and for some reason you decide that isn't the same person, this is where you can unmatch it. From the Share Data screen, you can unmatch it right here. Okay, and when you unmatch it, it's basically just going to kind of break that link so that you can go back to Find Matches and rematch those two records together. Now, one place this is really going to be important with Family Search, Family Tree, is that unlike the old new Family Search, in Family Tree, people can actually be deleted. Somebody can go in and actually delete a person on Family Tree. Now, let's say you happen to be linked to one of those people that happens to get deleted on Family Tree. What will happen is you'll come into this and you will get an error message that says something like gone. In other words, that person's gone. So if that happens, what you're going to want to do is unmatch. You're going to say unmatch my person from that ID that's been deleted, and that will unmatch it so that you can go back into the Find Matches tab and find the new person that you actually need to match them up with. Okay, so let's go ahead and touch on these last three tabs. That would be the Ordinances tab, the Discussions tab, and the Changes tab. Okay, the Ordinances tab is going to, if you are LDS, this is going to let you actually do things like reserve ordinances, bring completed ordinance information over into your file, things like that. If you're not LDS, you won't even have this tab, so you don't even need to worry about that. If you have information on Family Search that you want in RootsMagic, just come check the checkboxes you want, select the ones you want, and say copy to RootsMagic. There's a shortcut. If you click the little arrow up here, that'll either uncheck or check all of them. So if you want to check everything real quickly, just do that. But you select the ones you want, say copy to RootsMagic, and it brings it over right there. Okay. If there are any ordinances that are ready, you will have a checkbox in this column, and you can check that and say reserve the selected ordinances. Now, we have a full webinar just on doing this type of thing, so for now I'd refer you to that on how to reserve ordinances and the steps that are necessary to do that. Now, one thing I'm going to point out here, because our tech support people said please point this out because we get asked this all the time, you may have situations like this right here where it has a seal to spouse and it says it's been completed, but you have the same seal to spouse and it may say either you need more information or it's ready to be done. What that situation is these two spouses or the same two sets of parents are duplicates. Okay, so if I have two William Warrens as spouses for this person, I need to come back over here to the shared data screen and I need to find those two William Warrens. I need to find that other William Warren and I need to combine them together. Once I combine them, this additional ready or need more information one will disappear. It will fold into that other one. So that's something to be aware of. Is if you're starting to see a lot of duplicate stuff that says it needs to be done, that's what you can do. Okay, let's go ahead now and move on to the discussions. Now, discussions, as I mentioned early on in the webinar, discussions are like little message boards for each person. So each person that you go to is going to have discussions unless they're living. You're not allowed to discuss living people, for obvious reasons. But what will happen is you can go in here and you can start a new discussion. I can say I want to start a new discussion. I can give it a title and a comment. So I can say, I could come in here and say, okay, I need some verification or documentation. Does anybody have a copy of his birth certificate? So I give it a title for this discussion, and then I can put a big old long comment on it. When I do that and click OK, it's going to add a new discussion to this list, and right here, it's going to put the title of my discussion there and the actual discussion right here. Okay, now this particular discussion, you may see discussions on Family Tree that are already in there called legacy disputes. Okay, what that means is back on New Family Search, the old New Family Search, nobody was allowed to change anybody else's information. And so the only thing you could do is if somebody put something up that was wrong, you had to dispute it. You could say, hey, I dispute that. That's not right. Okay, any of those disputes that were made on New Family Search have been brought over to Family Tree and put into discussions, and that's what they mean by legacy disputes. In other words, legacy basically means old disputes. Okay, and so that's what those are, is the old disputes. Okay, now, when you create a discussion or when you click on a discussion, you'll see it right here, and if there's a discussion, you can come in here and you can say, I want to add a comment. And I could add a comment. I could type in a comment, click OK, and it will add my comment to that list. Okay, if I add a comment, my comment is going to have an edit link, kind of like this, except down below it. It's going to have an edit link and a delete link. So if I make a comment, I can delete my comment if I decide I don't really want it on there, or I can edit it. I can go in and change it. Okay, same thing with my discussion. So if I start a new discussion, in addition to add a comment, I will also have edit the discussion or delete the discussion. So I can actually go in and so in any discussion, any person can go in and comment on it, and then they can edit or delete their comments, and you can just continue. And so, like I say, it's like a little message board. So if you have a disagreement with somebody, if somebody has gone into Family Tree and changed some information that you had added, you can come back in here and and say, put it back. You can put it back and then come into the discussions and start a discussion and say, hey, please don't change that because I've got a copy of his birth certificate that shows that, and I have now put a copy of that birth certificate up. They might come back and say, hey, I've got a family Bible and I've got a baby announcement and I've got all these other things that specify this other date. But anyways, the discussions give you a place where you can talk to other people that are working on this same person or this same line up on FamilySearch and try to work out things. Okay, the last tab we're going to talk about here are changes. And the changes one is a really nice one because, as I mentioned, in FamilySearch Family Tree, anybody can change anything. Okay, this is not like the old new FamilySearch where you could put something up and nobody else could ever change it. People can change stuff that other people have added. So when you click on the Changes tab, what you're going to see are all the changes that have been made to this person out on Family Tree, this person that you've been working with out on Family Tree. It's going to show you what was done. It's going to show you the date it was done, who did it. Okay, it's going to show you what the details are for that. So like if we come down here, okay, somebody added a birth. Somebody added the death, okay, and in this case, FamilySearch data migration, that means it was pulled over from new FamilySearch. So new FamilySearch pulled over the death date, January 11th, 1910, okay. It's like, wait a second. I go back over to here, and I'm like, wait a second, no, we have January 15th, 1911, and we had a source that actually said that, okay. And so what happened is when somebody found that source, they went in and changed that. So you have death added. Up here, you're going to find somewhere up here. Okay, there it is, right? All right, I missed it, lost it again. Okay, there it is right there. Ugh. Death changed. Okay, the death date was changed on this date, and there's the date that it was changed to, January 15th, 1911. Unfortunately, they didn't put the reason. If they had put the reason, you would have a thing like this. It would say the reason. It would say the birth certificate. We attached the birth certificate that shows that this is the actual birth date. But you'll notice that it says for death changed, that's now the current value. But if we go back down here to where that death fact was added, you'll see it says restore. So if I wanted to be a jerk, and I don't want to be a jerk, so I'm not going to do this. But if I did want to be a jerk and restore this particular date and just ignore the fact that there was that source that had the other date, I could come in here and say restore, and RootsMagic is going to say, this is what we're going to restore back to this. And if I click restore, it would actually go and change the death fact back to this date. Now, what's great, though, is when it does that up here, it's going to add a new change item saying the death fact was changed back to such and such date, and it's going to list that January 10th date as being the current. And this one right here, this death changed fact, instead of saying current, it is going to all of a sudden say restore. And so the person could say, why did you do that? And you can come in here and click restore and restore it back to what it was without having to go through and re-enter it and change it. Okay. Now it brings up the question, what is going to keep people from getting into these wars and just going restore back and forth and back and forth? The answer is if FamilySearch detects that something is going back and forth too much like that, they will take action, whether it's lock that person and send you start behaving and start working through discussions and that type of thing to come up with it. But there are some safeguards to that. But like I say, the great thing is about this is if you accidentally put something over there, it is possible to go in and restore the value that it was before. Okay, so that is the changes list, and this in RootsMagic is all completely synced. So for example, if I were to come over here and add a source, if I was to go ahead and add this source to FamilySearch, as soon as I add that, I can come over to changes and I will see source attached. I will see it right there in the changes. If I come over into share data and I add this residence fact, if I go ahead and do this and put a reason and I add that residence fact, when I switch over here to changes, it's going to say, residence fact added, and it's going to put the information right there. So these are, like I say, these are completely in sync. If I were to come in here and go down here and be that jerk I was talking about and say restore this to January 11th, as soon as I did that, if I come back over here to share data, it's going to say January 11th right there on the FamilySearch side. My side will still be correct because the changes only affects the FamilySearch side. So it's not going to, doing and undoing changes is not going to affect what I have in RootsMagic. That's the great part about having your data in a separate program, is that even if something gets messed up out there on Family Tree, it's not affecting your data. You can still have your clean, pristine data, but still be able to share it with the world out on FamilySearch. Okay, one thing I'm going to show you quickly is this screen that we've brought up, by clicking that little icon, these FamilySearch person tools. You notice we've basically been working with that person we clicked on. Well, there is a little button over here on the left. You can see it's a kind of a tall, skinny button. If I click on that, what that does is that actually opens up a list of everybody in my file. So I don't have to actually close this screen and go select somebody back on the pedigree. I can open this right up and I can jump right to, if I want to jump from Elizabeth to that John that we were working on, I can click on that on John's screen and it will switch to him over here on the right side. Okay, and it's going to be on whatever tab. So in this case, he's matched up. That's why you see the little family tree icon showing next to their name. Those are the two people that have been matched with Family Tree. And so I can do that. This is a nice way. If I wanted to go and find matches for people a little bit quicker, I can click on Ann Baker. Well, not enough information for her. Okay, I can click on Catherine, and there's a bunch of possible matches that I can look at. Okay, I can go to Richard, Elizabeth, go to Elizabeth, and find people that have possible matches, and I can actually look for these possible matches. Now, one thing you're going to see, and I'm going to actually show you this, but I'm not going to actually do it. If on the Find Match screen you're already matched to somebody, and you decide this person is the same as yours, in other words, these are both duplicates, when you click to actually match up to this one, RootsMagic's going to tell you, hey, you're already matched up with somebody. We need to merge these two duplicates first. And if you tell it merge, what RootsMagic's going to do is it's going to bring up this FamilySearch merge screen. Okay? And it's going to show you the person that you're already matched up to. It's going to show you the person that you just said is the same, the one you want to match up to. And so what it's saying is, hey, you want to merge these two records together, and if you merge them together, this is what it's going to look like. This is what you're going to have based on what you have here. So for example, you can choose, again, one name. So if you decide that her name actually is Elizabeth Trout, you can check that, and that's the one it's going to keep. Okay, so that's going to be the actual merged person. If I click that merge button down at the bottom, this is what these two records are going to be merged into. Okay, if I decide that it was this Stokenham Devon, I can click on that and it's going to change it to that. Okay, some pieces of information, in this case, in your person, you have a christening, but FamilySearch doesn't even have a christening. That's why it's not these little radio buttons, because you're not choosing one or the other. You're choosing, does this one even exist or not? So you could say, this one is wrong, I want to take it out. You uncheck it, and so the combined person will not have that fact. That works for all of the facts. It works for the alternate names. It also works for the family members. So if you decide that you want you've already got 2 sets of parents. If you want a 3rd set of parents, you can do that, and now you're going to have 3 sets of parents in that combined record. So you can choose what you want and then click to merge them. Obviously I'm not going to do that, but that will let you merge those 2 records. What that will do is those 2 records would have been merged together, and my RootsMagic person would then be matched up to the newly merged record. Okay, now real quickly over here, you do have some filtering. There's some special filters. So if I wanted to, I could say, hey, only show me the people in my file that are matched to FamilySearch, and it's going to filter it so those are the only ones that are showing. Or I could say, oh, only show me the ones that are not matched to FamilySearch. And so you can see ones that haven't been matched, so you can go down through the list looking for matches. And there's a number of other things, people that have, have temple work complete, or people that have ordinances reserved, a bunch of different options. There's a second filter, and these filters work together, so you can use both. You can mix and match them. But this lets you do things like say, I want everybody in my database, or I want a group of people, and that lets you use a named group. That's where you can pick anybody you want. I only want people whose last name is Smith, who were born in California. So you can do that and select the named groups. Again, we have a webinar on using named groups where we cover using named groups, so you can look at that in that other webinar. Or you could say, I only want the ancestors. So if you want to select yourself and only 4 generations, you can limit that list to just you and your 4 generations, and combine that, you and your 4 generations, but only those that haven't been matched to FamilySearch. So you have these options for filtering that list right there. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about is a second screen called FamilySearch Central. What we've been working on at this point is what are called the FamilySearch person tools. That's where you can look for matches, you can share data back and forth, you can get into discussions with people, you can transfer sources back and forth, you can see a change history and restore changes. The FamilySearch Central is, instead of clicking on the little FamilySearch icon next to a person's name, you click on the FamilySearch toolbar button. And what this is going to do is, this is like a dashboard, and it actually won an award from FamilySearch for Best Dashboard. And what this does is gives you several panels, tasks to do. It shows you're logged in. If you want to log out and log in as a different name, you can do that. It shows you how many people in your file have not been matched to FamilySearch. Shows how many need more temple information. You have a What's New screen. This is going to show you when somebody has changed out on FamilySearch. This is going to tell you, hey, somebody's changed out on FamilySearch, and you can click and get a list of those people that have changed, and then for each one of them, look at that change page so you can see what has changed on each person. And it's also got a little status, little pretty pie charts. One is how many people have matched versus not matched, and what's the LDS status of the people that have been matched. Okay. If you click on one of these links, if I click on this not matched, it's going to bring up that same screen we were looking at, except it happens to have the filter selected, people that are not matched to FamilySearch. That's part of the reason we have these filters, is so that you can, from the FamilySearch Central, just click and it will take care of the filter for you and show you just that particular list of people. Okay, these first 3 buttons, all they do is bring up that exact same screen. It just chooses which tab, the Find Matches tab, the Share Data tab, or the Ordinances tab. Okay, there's a button here called Temple Work, which we won't be covering in this webinar. Again, we have another webinar where this is discussed, but this is the one where any ordinances that you have reserved, you can come in and print what's called the Family Ordinance Request. That's the form you're going to take to get the cards printed to have the ordinances done. So you can print the ordinance request, you can see a list of ordinance requests you printed, and once you have those cards printed, you can actually track those cards. This will actually let you track those cards, give them to people, and be able to see which cards you gave to which people and what progress they've made on those cards. Okay, the two we want to talk about here, though, are import and auto match. Import, what this is for is this actually lets you import or bring over more than just one person. Okay, from those FamilySearch person tools, you can bring over somebody and say, oh, bring this person over into RootsMagic as a new father or as a child or as a whatever. This import a tree actually lets you say, starting with this person, you can say, and you enter that FamilySearch ID, say, I want you to import this many generations of ancestors, this many generations of descendants, and it will pull that tree into RootsMagic for you. The second option is me, and this is useful for people who have never used a genealogy program before. Somebody who doesn't have data in PAF or any other program, and the only information they have that they actually have accessible to them is what's already out on FamilySearch Family Tree. In that case, you would create a new database, you would come into FamilySearch Central, you would click on Import, and you would choose me and however many generations of ancestors and descendants you want, and click Import. And RootsMagic will go out to FamilySearch Family Tree and import that tree directly into RootsMagic for you. Okay, so that's a good way to get started if that's the only data that you actually have available. Okay, last feature I'm going to show you here is going to be auto match. Okay, as we showed you, what you do to actually match up with a person, to match your person to FamilySearch, is click on the little gray icon, and RootsMagic brings up the matches, and you select a match, and you say, yeah, match my person, and you have to analyze it and everything. What auto match does, and I'm just going to go ahead and start this and let it go while I'm talking. What auto match does is it goes through every person in your database that isn't already matched to somebody out on Family Tree and tries to determine, is that person out on Family Tree? And if they are, it will match your person in RootsMagic to that person on Family Tree. So in other words, you don't have to go one at a time over here and click on a person and then look at the possible matches and select one and then say, yeah, match it, and then go to a next, close that out and go to the next one. You can come into auto match and it will analyze these people. It's not necessarily speedy because it's actually having to go out there to FamilySearch and ask for this information, but it's still a lot faster, a whole lot faster than you can go one person at a time and look at the matches. So in other words, at this point so far, just while we've been talking, we found 18 matches. We've actually matched up 18 people in this RootsMagic file with the corresponding person out on Family Tree. And in this little database, it found and matched 20 people. So once I've done that, when I click Finish, one thing you'll want to do is leave FamilySearch Central open. You'll notice that it's actually updating some of these numbers. Okay, you're going to see some of this stuff is updating because when RootsMagic does that auto match, all it's doing is saying this person in my file is the same as that person out on Family Tree. It's not moving any data back and forth, so it doesn't really know much about that person that you matched to other than that is the same person. And so what it does is after they've all been brought in through that auto, or actually they've all been matched up, RootsMagic in the background right here starts actually looking to see what the actual status is, how many have been changed since the last time you looked and things like that. So, like I say, just leave this open for a little while and you'll be good. Once you've actually let it go, you can go ahead and close this, and you'll notice that eventually, okay, there we go. You'll notice a lot of these people that we hadn't matched up by hand have been matched. Again, like I say, it's not copying data back and forth. It's just saying they are the same person. So when I go and click on this Robert Warren that RootsMagic found during the auto match, instead of taking me to that Find Matches tab, it's taking me directly to the Share Data tab. In other words, it said, your Robert Warren, who's person number 17 in your file, is the same as this person on Family Search that's person number LZLG-PKM. You can see names basically match, births don't quite, but the christening date and place match, the death and burial, those are a bit off. It looks like he may have been 8 or 9 months old, have been dead 8 or 9 months. But you can go down here and you can see the father, the mother, the spouse, the children. They've already been matched up as well. So this auto match feature in Family Search Central is a big time saver. You just go ahead and click on it, and it takes care of matching those up for you. Again, like I say, don't worry, it's not moving any data back and forth. The only time any data moves between RootsMagic and Family Search, or Family Search and RootsMagic, is when you are on those Family Search person tools and you say copy a fact over, copy a person over, or you go to the Sources tab and say copy a source over. Okay, so those are the big things. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at a few of these questions. How accurate is auto match? What does it look for? Auto match is based on Family Search, its return. What RootsMagic does is says, hey, here's all the information we have on this RootsMagic person. Is there a match out on Family Search? And Family Search will come back and it may say, no, there are no matches. Or it may say, well, there's a match, but it's kind of a low quality or a medium quality match. We only take matches that are considered high quality matches. Okay, in other words, Family Search says we are almost absolutely, we're positive that this is the same person. The thing is once we get a high quality match like that, we do some analysis ourselves to make sure we actually start to compare parents and spouse names and things like that, in addition to what Family Search has actually based it on, to make sure. Keep in mind that if it did, for some reason, I've never seen an incorrect match, in all the time that we've had this, I haven't seen an incorrect match. But if there was an incorrect match, like I say, no data has been transferred. So if you went in and you saw an incorrect match and you looked at this person and said, man, these two are not the same person at all you have to do is come up here and say unmatch. And they'll say, do you want to unlink them? And you say, yep, and now they're not matched anymore. So when I close, they're not matched anymore. So it's as simple as going in and saying they are unmatched, or unmatch them if you ever do find one that's wrong. Like I say, I haven't seen an incorrect match right there. Okay, somebody says if you let a Family Search do the match, you are giving your data to them. That would be correct if they were storing the data that you were sending to ask for a match. They aren't doing that, at least not at the moment, and I don't know that they have any intention. I assume if they ever started actually keeping the match data that you sent to them, then they would make that public. Okay, so how do you change the settings in RootsMagic to allow the use of family tree? Okay, that's a good question. When we actually created that new RootsMagic file, when we created that new file, we actually checked Family Search, Family Tree support right here. If you forgot to check that and so you didn't have Family Search support, what you'll do is go to Tools and then go down here to the File Options. When you click on the File Options, there's an option right here. There's this category called Family Search, and you can just choose whether or not to enable Family Search support. And you can turn it off just as easily. So if I go in and say turn it off, then you'll notice the little Family Search icon next to each person turned off. Okay, so I can go do that. LDS support, likewise, you can turn on or off that way. So you can turn that on or off anytime you want. Okay, let's see. Okay, oh, this is another good question. What if there is no match on Family Tree? Okay, so for example, let me go to a person here, and this person may or may not have a match. I don't know. Oh, not, yeah. Okay, this person right here does not have enough information to do a match. Okay, see, I've got his name, and that's all I've got. I don't have any other information other than his name. So if there's not enough information for RootsMagic to actually have FamilySearch return a match, I can choose Search for More Matches. And when I click that, I can have it just do a basic search, and it fills in the little bit of information I actually have. So it fills in his name, the fact that he was male, the fact that his name is his wife's name is Jane, his spouse's name is Jane, in this case is Trathan, and the spouse's birth. Okay, and I can tell it to search, and when I tell it to search, it's going to come up, and it finds a whole bunch which may or may not be matches. If they are matches, I can go ahead and click and match them up with FamilySearch. Okay, now there's several different options. When I say do a basic search, it's going to search based on whatever I have in here, and it's going to do kind of what's called a fuzzy search. In other words, it's going to find stuff, you know, that Trathan may be spelled T-R-A-T-H-A-N or A-E-N-N or whatever. When I do an advanced search, I have a little, it's the same as the basic search, except that it puts a checkbox next to each item, and so I can be a little bit more specific, and I can say, okay, I want exact. And if I say exact, then that means it's only going to bring back matches where that last name is spelled exactly like that. It's not going to use that fuzzy type search. It's only going to do that. So that's what the advanced search is. The search by ID is where I can enter a PID. So if I've been out on FamilySearch and I've actually seen a person that I'm looking for, and so I know they're out there and I know their ID, I can come right here and enter that ID and search, and it will actually bring back that one result, that one single result. Okay, and so that's how I can do that. Now let's say I do this and none of these are matches. In other words, I've searched for more matches and I've done everything, and they just this person just isn't up on Family Tree. Then I can click Add to FamilySearch. And when I click Add to FamilySearch, it's going to say, this is going to make add a copy of this person to FamilySearch. Again, it's saying make sure the person's not already on there, which is what we would have just done. And I could click Add to FamilySearch. I'm not going to do that. But when I click Add to FamilySearch, it is going to take Richard, add him to FamilySearch. And if I have other people in my file that are linked to FamilySearch, it will use that information and link Richard into the appropriate place up on FamilySearch. So it's not going to just throw him up there on an island by himself. It's going to go ahead and put him up on FamilySearch and then link him to the appropriate family members based on who you have already matched up with FamilySearch. Okay, let's see. Can I search for persons that I don't have in RootsMagic and copy them into RootsMagic? The answer to that would be yes. That what you would do is on that share data screen, when you're on this share data screen, let me go back to Elizabeth Trathan here. And what you'll do is when you're on a person's screen, and this basically lets you kind of keep it together. Okay, you'll see right here, in RootsMagic, I have this spouse. I have Elizabeth with her spouse, William Warren, and Elizabeth Warren, one of the children. Okay, but I don't have any of these other children. I don't have. So I could go in and look, and I can look at the information. If I decide I want Thomas in that family, I just click, and I say Add to RootsMagic, and I can say I want to add him as in that family, or I can add him as a new child, which creates a new family, or if the child was already over there, I could match them up. But in this case, I want to add Thomas to my file. This person's going to be copied over, so I'm going to say OK, and it's going to read Thomas, and it's going to bring Thomas over into RootsMagic. And so as soon as this finishes loading, okay, you're going to see now I have Thomas. Thomas is now in this family. Elizabeth and William and Thomas is in there, and I can go close this out and show you. There's William and Elizabeth. If I go to that family view, there's Thomas. There's the Thomas that I just brought in from FamilySearch. So if I bring him up, it's got all of the information that was in FamilySearch for him, including any notes and sources and whatever. That information is all going to be in there as well. Sources. Actually, I take it back. The sources won't come over. Bringing the sources over when we bring the person, that is something we're working on. But right now, it will bring over their names and all those events. Okay. Let's see. Can you fix birth orders in Family Tree from RootsMagic? That's something you can't do currently from the RootsMagic itself. There are a few little things that you, if you want to clean up stuff on Family Tree, in order to be certified, basically what it is it's being able to share your data between RootsMagic and Family Tree. There are some things, like if you need to clean up data on Family Tree itself, there are some things that you will need to actually go out to Family Tree itself in order to do. Okay. Let's see. Let me scroll up here a little bit. Will RootsMagic copy over path notes to the person? Yes, all your notes, sources, pictures, everything will transfer over. Oh, how do we use what's new? I have hundreds of people that have new information after an auto match, and that's true. Right after you do an auto match, basically everybody is considered new. Okay, so because you haven't looked at any of them, and so the best way to do that is just to let it finish doing its thing, counting them up, and then say reset the count, clear the count. That'll zero it back out, and then that way anybody that changes from that point on will be showing up in what's new. If you just leave that, if you leave that up there, you're going to have to go through those FamilySearch person tools and actually look at each of those people in order to clear that. So it's best just to go ahead and clear them, clear them all out, and then let it keep track of what's new from that point on. Okay, what is BU after the name in the pedigree chart? Okay, yeah, I saw that. Right, let's see, right here. If you see BU, what that means is that person does not have a death fact, and so instead of putting leaving it blank for a death date, it puts a burial date. You may also see a person, I don't see any right here, but if a person has a christening date but no birth date, you might see a date with a C in parentheses after that. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of questions here that aren't necessarily related to Family Tree, and so we aren't going to really cover those because we want to pretty much try to stay on topic. Now, I'm looking through here, and I'm not just off the top of my head seeing any that weren't answered. There may be, and I apologize if there were. Anyways, hopefully this gives you a good overview of how to use RootsMagic to interface with the FamilySearch family tree. Being able to find matches, share your data, share sources back and forth, get access to the sources that are on FamilySearch to bring them into RootsMagic, including the links, being able to see what changes have been made to a person out on FamilySearch and actually restoring changes if necessary. We will be doing future webinars, which will be on specific features, which we've covered in this. Like I say, this is intended to be an overview, just kind of an overview of what all the different things are that you are able to do with RootsMagic's FamilySearch tools. So again, I hope you enjoyed this, hope you learned a lot, and we'll be seeing you at our next webinar. Thanks for joining us.